Hi folks, Richard Palaciolo here with Weapons of Choice. Now today I'm going to explain a bit about switchblades for stage. There are two kinds of switchblades. Out the front, which has a floating blade that slides out of the end of the handle by gravity or by a spring, and swing out or side opening. The common plays that need switchblades are shows such as 12 Angry Men, Rebel Without a Cause, The Outsiders, and of course West Side Story. And those plays are all set in the 1950s, so it's the swing out knife that's the kind to use. Oh, I know, before I get the comments. The Outsiders is technically set in 1965, but stylistically, everything in that book, the play, and the movie is from the late 1950s. Now, the side-out or side-opening switchblade, this kind of knife doesn't have a floating blade, but one that pivots like a folding knife. Unlike simple folders, switchblades are spring-loaded, so the blade can pop open with a simple press of a button. When the button is up, the blade is in the locked position. When the button is down, the blade is free to move. Now, the spring can only push the blade to the open position, so when the button is pressed, the blade swings out sideways. Release the button, the spring keeps pushing the blade open until you fold it back closed. Since there's no spring that closes the blade, this type of switchblade needs two hands to close, but only one hand to open. Now, the purchase, distribution, and carrying of switchblades is illegal for civilians in most states and jurisdictions in this country. At least half of the states have some sort of laws against switchblades. For example, in California, we civilians cannot legally sell, offer, or expose for sale, loan, transfer, give, or carry one if it has a blade length longer than 2 inches. So that means that theaters and movie studios can build them, but then they can't leave the premises. So if a neighboring theater has some switchblades in their props cabinet, you're not allowed to transport them out of there if you're doing a production of West Side Story. Now, what you can do is legally purchase the novelty switchblade comb. All you need to do is remove the plastic comb and drop in a very lightweight piece of thin sheet aluminum or stainless steel to make it look like a knife. Since the aluminum is so weak, it's not really a knife anymore because, quote, its characteristics substantially limit its effectiveness as a stabbing weapon. Now, I know that some people like to simply cover the plastic with some aluminum foil covering the comb, but still, it works, but it looks a little bit ragged. Doing it my way certainly isn't perfect. The blade is so weak you can't jab the blade into wood or even into styrofoam, really. The blade is just too weak for that. It'll fold. The finished product also won't last forever, but it is the right look, and it's ridiculously cheap. If you want to give it a go yourself, it only takes a few minutes to assemble one. And here's how. First, open it several times. Check the strength of the spring. Most of these work fine, but there's no reason to waste your time if the comb starts out defective. Then you need to spread open the spine of the comb by sliding a strong knife blade in between the spine and the plastic comb. You only have to do it on one side. And gently wiggle the blade of your knife to pry open the spine. Continue along the length of the comb. Now slightly separate the plastic comb from the spine. Just a little bit. You don't want to break the plastic at the pivot point. And now you're going to cut off the plastic comb just where the teeth begin. Don't remove the bottom piece of plastic. That little nub is critical for the knife to work later. Now with a pair of tin snips, cut out a length of very thin aluminum for your blade. If you don't have aluminum fashing, which is what I use, an aluminum soft drink can work out just fine for this. Some people try to use thin steel for the blade, like from a tin can. Well, this is getting dangerously close to creating a real illegal switchblade. But more importantly, the spring mechanism of the comb simply can't take that extra weight, although it seems like it's not much. The comb starts to fail in just a few rehearsals. If you've seen the YouTube video on building one that way, you'll notice that at the end, the builder had to really flick his wrist in order for the knife to open up all the way. The spring simply can't do it on its own. Now look down the empty channel of the spine. It has a right and a left side. Slip the blade into the spine on the left side of that plastic nub. If you accidentally put it in on the right side, you'll cover the small hole that's on that side of the spine base, and then your knife will no longer stay closed. Close down the spine so as to secure the blade in place. I prefer using a couple of turns on a table vise. It gives it a nice, even finish in order for the blade to operate easily and properly. If you don't have a table vise, that's fine. You can use a pair of pliers. It just takes longer, and it's a little rougher finish. Almost done. Using the tin snips again, trim the blade so that it has the shape you want. Note that you'll want the blade as long as possible so that the audience has a chance of seeing it. But don't let it get any longer than the handle when the knife is closed, or else the tip will simply bend as soon as it touches something. I generally like to make 3 simple cuts to give the shape of the blade. Others may prefer to round the cuts more, but I really don't see much benefit in that. The aluminum stock that you used for the blade is so thin that it'll give you a paper cut whether you round the tip or the edges or not. Some people also like to put adhesive tape along the blade's leading edge, but when you do that, you are adding thickness to the blade that already has to fit into a very small space in the handle, and it doesn't really make it all that much safer. That should be it. If the assembly went well, the knife should be working fine. If not, or if the knife starts to fail in the future, try the following fixes. Naturally, these things don't last forever, but before you throw it away, one of them might prolong the life of your prop. First, keep in mind that the handle is where the blade lives, so is, of necessity, hollow. It's also made of very thin, soft stainless steel. So each time that you press that release button, or even stick it in your pocket, or even when you grab hold of it, it compresses slightly. Not enough so that you would notice, but every time it's used, that handle gets just a little bit squished. The first clue that something is going wrong is that the blade won't pop open, or if it does, it seems that the spring has become weak. It's never the spring. Each time the blade pops open, it should do so with a satisfying smack. And if it doesn't, you'll need to open up the handle. Then stick a wide-bladed tool, maybe the tin snips, maybe the knife, into the handle just above where the release button is. Then just twist it back and forth a couple of times until the handle opens up a bit. You don't need to do the entire handle, just the area above the release button. And that should do the trick. 9 times out of 10, this is the fix that fixes. It's also good periodic maintenance. During the show run, maybe you might do it once a week, or any time that the blade feels slightly sluggish. Sometimes the handle itself doesn't get squished, but the release button will sink down and not rise up again. It's really a variation of the same problem, and the fix is the same as well. That didn't work? Well, it could be that the blade itself is getting slightly twisted, or it got bent somehow and it's rubbing against some part of the inside of the handle. If you can spot the bend, you should be able to twist it back using a pair of pliers or probably just your own hands. The metal is soft enough. On rare occasion, there is a little bit of resistance at the pivot point. 1 drop of WD-40 will usually do the trick. Also, you might need to open up that little area of the pivot by sliding your knife blade in between the pivoting blade of the switchblade and the handle portion by that rivet. Oh, lastly, there's that silly safety button that slides up and down. It's just a nuisance. Bring it down to the open position and either tape it in place or put in a drop of glue to keep it from moving. After that, you're on your own, but seriously, most times, one of these fixes will get the prop going again in just a few minutes. If this was helpful or interesting to you, please hit the like button, I'd appreciate that, and I invite you to subscribe to this channel. If you have any questions, go ahead and use the comments section, but for now, stay safe and play safe.